So, what are we talking about?
1, 2, 3, action!
Love and
Ego.
Okay,
All right.
nice thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
Does ego interfere with love, do you think?
Yes.
How so?
Can one ever fully remove the ego?
That's true.
Do you think that's possible?
To fully remove the ego? I mean, people debate that, but I think you know, in planet Earth, I think you need some level of ego. I think if you fully remove the ego, it's dangerous, but I think in terms of a relationship, I think you can remove the ego to a certain point.
Yeah.
So that there's less friction in a relationship. What do you think?
How?
I think, like when two people have a lot of ego, it's hard to think on behalf of the other person or to even have compassion for the other person because you're more focused on your individual wants and needs.
Very true. I think that when it comes to a relationship, it comes to love, it's something that you get into without necessarily expecting. And so sometimes your mind wants to protect you. And so the mind brings up the ego and it does this thing where you want to fall in love, you want to be in love, you are in love, but at the same time you're scared because it's a feeling that you can't control.
That's true.
That makes sense. For me, I feel that I think to a certain degree, from what you guys have taught me, if we just continue to practice letting go and then also just using all the tools such as the new earth, then being able to refine that and being able to just find stillness in times of chaos, that kind of helps me at least.
Yeah.
But I know that there's flare-ups though too, but I think that that's the lesson. It's a continuous lesson that I continuously have as a challenge every day. But I for me last night I did the salt bath. Yeah, finally. Yeah. And it was amazing because I did the music enhanced heart meditation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in the salt bath. Yeah.
Oh, good.
So he was thinking of you.
I didn't know.
Yeah, it was actually the first time I did it. With the Love Tower one.
Yeah.
The one that's on the Love Tower website, and I felt because I've been super stressed out, just felt very pressured from whatever, and when I did the salt bath, and then I also played the music enhanced heart meditation.
Yeah.
I felt that the ego was so big, and just relaying it back to the ego, right? But the ego was so big, so I felt out of alignment with myself. And then when I did the salt bath, I did I cleansed, I did the saging, all that stuff falls onto whatever, and then I did I just did prayers and set my intentions for what I want, which is to open the heart chakra. And so when I played the music enhanced heart meditation, and I fully just it was my first time listening to it. I listened to it twice and I experienced my heart just opening bigger and bigger.
Oh,
And
really?
and so it felt like the ego was whatever disalignment that I was in or I was experiencing, I felt that disappearing. Yeah, and then I felt that it just felt like my energy was restoring, and I felt from the top of my head all the way to the bottom of my feet over and over again, and then from my heart, the chest area, it felt like there was just pulsating, but throughout my entire body.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I felt when I did it. So
That's horrible.
yeah, it felt super refreshing, and I felt really back in my center and just me. I felt back at me.
That's a really good point. Actually, it's the ego is what closes the heart in the first place. because the ego gets injured, you know, and then and it starts to, especially in a relationship, two people, you know, it's like you have two identities, so you're coming together, and these two identities are merging into this new entity. But that merger doesn't happen without restructuring of the egos. So there has to be balance that takes place, and like some of it is painful. It's like you're building a new entity. So
Wow.
and so the ego does go through pain. Sometimes you can, you know, there is a lot of trauma that can like injure the heart, and the heart shuts down. And so to keep the heart open, and to keep the love in the relationship pure, like the connection powerful, you know, it takes work.
So much work.
Yeah, it's worth it.
So much work.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
worth it.
I was just thinking how like when you're in a relationship with someone, it's so much work because people don't. I think that most people don't ever realize how much work it takes when you're in a relationship with someone, because like what you said, there's two different people, there's two different egos, and they're coming together as one. And so there's just so much work that you have to do on an individual level in order to be able to get to that, like, you know, powerful love with two people. There's always a willingness that you have to, you know, come to where you compromise and you listen. And so, yeah, the ego totally gets in the way of love, but at the same time, if you keep working on yourself in order to be able to come together with a partner, it's very powerful. And so, yeah, relationships are really tough, but totally worth it because you not only see what you're capable of as an individual, but you see when two people come together, like what they're truly capable and how they can, you know, impact the world.
That's true. I think like so many couples come together and the love is so strong. And then you wonder, like, you look at society and you wonder, especially like in Western society, why relationships have such a high rate of failure. And it's because where you look at other areas of the world and you see like some marriages that are, you know, the people aren't even coming together by choice, they're arranged marriages. And those work out more than, you know, the marriages here in the West. And so I think that it is very, you know, it shows that, you know, love is possible from any type of relationship anywhere, but the trick is to hold that love. And it's like, there's a saying that I really love. It's love will not save us, it's for us to save. And so it, you know, that just it shows you the sacredness of love and how sacred it is to preserve love, and the difficulty and the struggle that it will continue to be in a relationship. But it's like you said, it is worth it.
Yeah. Why do you think that when couples come together, like there's a higher rate of like division?
I think because in the West, I think it's like our mindset, as opposed to other areas of the world where they're arranged marriages and they work at a higher percentage than us in the West. I think it's just the mindset. Like here we have a mindset of, you know, swipe to the next. It's like this one's not working out, so swipe to the next. Like
Very short term.
Yeah.
Like there's options. You feel like there's more options, so you're like, okay, like it's not going my way, it's not what I expected, so next.
Yeah.
As opposed to actually taking a look at yourself, like where can I possibly wrong and be wrong, and where can I compromise? And it takes a level of effort of removing your own ego and putting it aside to actually consider like what's actually going on here. Like, am I, you know, fighting with this person to be right, or is there something that's going on, you know? Everyone was just raised differently, and we see through different lenses, and I think sometimes people forget that we see through different lenses, and when you see through different lenses, and someone doesn't see the way you see, you automatically think like this person's against me.
Oh yeah, it's like, so you're saying that whenever you feel that like you're being attacked, or you just feel that you're not able or capable or even equipped with the right skill set to just communicate like what you're feeling. So instead of it communicating properly, like you come off as, I gotta defend myself against whatever's happening.
Correct.
Right.
And a lot of it is too is that if you think about an argument, especially with couples, it's like a lot of times we identify the thing that we're disagreeing about with ourselves, which is exactly the ego, because it's entangling and these worldly things, it's attaching you. But sometimes the argument doesn't have to do, it's kind of like what Crystal was saying, it's just two different views, two different people from two different backgrounds have two different understandings. But we attach maybe what we're arguing about. Let's say I have a different way of shopping for groceries or dietary choices, and so because of that, I try to promote these ideas to my mate, and maybe they have counter ideas, but then I identify the disagreement with like an injury to my idea, and I identify that idea with me.
Yeah,
And
makes sense,
so this is where the ego gets entangled.
That's all right. So then, like, what is the tool to catch that?
It's like you said, it's Eckhart Tolle. We've all read the book, New Earth. It's and he says it best: awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness is what weakens the ego. If you're aware that, this idea isn't necessarily attached to me. It doesn't really have anything to do with me, or even a wrongdoing that someone does to you. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you, even though the wrongdoing was to you. But it's not necessarily something that's of you, it's something that's of that person. It may not even have, it's just their own conflicts or traumas that they're overcoming in their life.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that you said like they're overcoming it, and instead of like the term like projecting.
Yeah.
Like that. I think that when it comes to like the ego being kind of like flared up, then whoever you're around, if they're experiencing some type of trauma or obstacle or challenge, like that's a really good perspective to like look at things. Is to see them as, even though they may or may not have directly or indirectly affected you in any type of way, they're just experiencing their own experience.
That's true.
Yeah, and if you're able to be attentive and aware to find out that it's not even about me, it's about like what they are going through, then I think that right there in itself is, you just won. Like for yourself, you just leveled up. Like there was a lesson in that. And then from there, if we're able to talk to that person, or even equip them with like a tool, for example, of how to catch that in the future, if they were to ask though. Like I wouldn't give advice if they didn't ask, because there's no point, at least in my opinion or experience. But if they were to seek advice, or look like, how can I be better, how can I improve my situation or whatever challenge I'm overcoming, what tool would I use? So I think that like one of those tools is that book.
Yeah, it really teaches you how to weaken the ego and bring awareness to it. And I love about Eckhart Tolle, because he simplifies it. It's kind of very similar to Stoic philosophy, but he just has a way of simplifying it in a way that it's very easy to pick up on, and it's not very complex, and I think anyone can understand it and pick it up and use it.
Going back to like what you said, when two couples or two people, individuals, come together, they are forming like a new being or entity or an ego. I was talking to someone the other night at dinner, and they were and I actually shared with them that there's this book called The New Earth, and because we were talking about the ego,
Oh.
Yeah, we're talking about the ego entities, not entities, but just ego in general, how to overcome that, and also like what is the transition from a boy into a man, and where does the ego play in, and where does that transition happen, and all these different things. But one thing that he said was, he asked me a question. He said, like, what do you think the ego is? Yeah, because the question that I posed to him was, is it possible to separate the ego from the being, from you? And then so then when he asked me, like, what do you think the ego is? Then I said, I don't know. But then he said, you know, like, I read this book from Eastern philosophies, and he said that a wise person, or, you know, a master, they said that in order to describe the ego to someone, it's as if there's 10,000 dragon heads. And whenever you, like, if you overcome one of the heads, like, just know that there's like 9,900 more, and that's the ego. And so then if I were to describe it to myself and to ask myself, well, can I ever separate the ego from me? You know, again, going back to all these other teachings too, it's like, is the ego separate from yourself? And if that is true, or if that is even possible.
That's so interesting, because that reminds me of a Buddhist story that my friend told me about, and I don't remember exactly, but it was something about I think it was the Buddha, and then one of his students. They were, you know, basically trying to progress down the path of enlightenment, and one of the last remaining attachments that they had was, it was like an attachment to, like, I think it was like an attachment to the Buddha, or learning from the Buddha, or something like that. And even though it's a good attachment, it's still like the ego attaching to something. And so it's kind of like what you're saying. It's like you think you're removing all these things, like, oh, okay, I have no ego, like, I've mastered all of this. There was still an attachment, there was still ego there.
That makes sense. Dang, that's wild.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. What do you think that, you know, whenever the ego does, like, come up, like, if you're, I guess, like, in your life, you know, when was a time where, like, the ego was so present, but you were able to catch yourself? Like, what did you do in that moment?
Like, I really do use the, you know, I'm really into, obviously, Stoic philosophy, Buddhism, but I really do like the way Eckhart Tolle describes, like, becoming aware in the situation, just the awareness, and then you will experience an inner spaciousness. That's Eckhart Tolle's words. You will experience an inner spaciousness where it's just like you feel the separation happen because of your awareness. Now you feel that you still feel and experience the ego and some of the feeling, but it's not, it doesn't have that push and effect to it. Yeah, the effect starts to diminish.
Yeah.
And so now you feel that you can kind of separate yourself from it.
You're able to separate yourself from the experience.
Yeah. I mean, you're feeling it. It's hard to describe. You're feeling it, but it's not, the effect isn't there. Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like taking a pause helps.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in a situation and things are escalating and you're like, I think we're about to, like, it's just about to go down and it's not going to go down a great path, taking a moment to just pause. Like, taking a mindful moment to be aware that things are about to escalate real quickly, and taking that moment to just pause, take a breath, and, like, even ask yourself a question, like, what's happening, or like, what's going on. And there's a quote, you know, when people are getting into an argument, it's speak without offending and listen without defending, because most of the time people are just, they're not even listening, they're just talking to defend themselves, like, right away. Like, they're listening to have a defense, and you're like, did you even hear what I said? So most of the time people aren't listening, they're just like, the ego is so present that it's like defense, like, to anything and everything coming at them, where they feel like they have to constantly have some type of answer, as opposed to, like, that pause.
Yeah. That is so true. Like, I think we've all experienced arguments like that where we're talking to the person and then it's literally either we're doing it or they're doing it, where we're listening but only in a defensive listen, where it's just like, I'm just listening so I can make a point against that.
There's no listening to
Yeah.
what is this person going through, or how are they feeling, and is there something that I may have done wrong. Like, we don't even stop to think that, because the ego is so present that we're like, defend, as opposed to like, you know what, like, what they're saying is, you know, let me just hear it out and let me think. Did I do that? Did I say that? Did I mean to? Maybe we can, you know, have a conversation and actually come to some type of compromise.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, like in 2020, when like I first got with Crystal, I didn't even know about like holding space. Like, I never even heard of that phrase. Yeah, so she taught me that. And it's like going back to that, you know, your point of when two people are in a disagreement, like they're experiencing obviously reactionary, you know, experiences or engagements. And it just, those are the type of, you know, conflict and energy that oftentimes may lead to division, like to dividing, to breaking up, etc. But if they're able to overcome that, or if they're able to just, you know, take a moment and pause and give each other space, which is exactly what happens basically, then from there they come back together as themselves, because the ego is no longer present, or the pain body or whatever that is no longer present, and then now they address what actually happened. And then, you know, I don't know, I can't speak on anyone else's relationships, but when it comes to like learning about just giving that person space, like that right there, just that one phrase, that framework, like I think that's helped me at least understand like how to quiet the mind, and then also take a pause, so that way I never, if in the very beginning of our relationships when conflict were to erupt, I didn't know anything about that. I was never equipped with that knowledge or that information, and I never like had even time to practice or refine that to level my skill set up in terms of relationship skills. And so, yeah, giving that pause and like giving the person like, you know, space, but then also giving yourself in the mind, like, and even in the heart and in the body, like space. That's something that I never learned until I met her. And then, you know, that ties back into like meditation as well, right? Like being able to like quiet the mind, the thoughts, like the constant, never ending, whatever is happening in your mind. Like that right there, I think is something that really benefited me, because, you know, before I met her, it just wasn't like that. It was just, my mind was racing at all times. I needed music at all times. I needed to be always constantly doing things instead of like relaxing and resting, or even taking a pause.
Yeah, or like being, you know, like around someone all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you get like into these situations where things are escalating, your body is automatically going into fight or flight mode. So like your nervous system is already like, you know, fight or flight. Like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna fight right now? Am I gonna like, you know, walk away? Like, most likely you're gonna like fight. You know what I mean? Because you're defending yourself. So yeah, sometimes it's better just to take a pause and then hold space for each other. Like, hey, I think things are gonna escalate. Maybe we can take 5, or like I like to call it a self timeout. Like sometimes I'm like, I need a timeout right now. Like I just no. Like, I don't want to expend this energy and, like, you know, say things that I'm going to regret and have to apologize for later on. Like, I just need a self-timeout, you know. And I think sometimes, like, with the world today, like, we're so busy, you know. Like, people are so busy. Like, you're working, you're driving, you have kids, you have a home, and it's just you're constantly in fight or flight. So that's where bringing it back to meditation, I feel like meditation would help people a lot to quiet their minds, give themselves that space that they need and that time to kind of quiet or at least reflect before, you know, your ego kind of takes off, so you could actually drop to the heart.
You know, this conversation makes me think of, we should make a list of tools to preserve love.
That's dope.
That's what you call it, tools to preserve love.
I think that's great.
Because it's like, if you think about it, it's like, in a relationship, what happens is the relationship starts off with the love is so strong, it's so powerful. It overcomes the ego just because the love is so strong. But over time, it starts to enter, and the analytical mind starts to come into play, because now you're together every day. You know, it's not that new love, the butterflies,
The honeymoon period.
the honeymoon period. And so now that the analytical mind is there, the ego starts to come into place. This is
like
where
opening.
the friction is starting to happen now. And I talk about this like, you know, this is the age of AI, but people don't actually realize how like AI humans can be. Sometimes humans can be very stuck in a logical state of mind, and they're not in a loving state. It's purely running on logic. An AI is just an extreme version of a human. A human is just a biological machine. You know, if you look at it, you could think of it that way.
Yeah.
And so AI is just an extreme version of that. And so some people are already like walking around like AIs. Like they only think from a logical state of mind. The heart is very deactivated. The compassion is very deactivated. And in relationships, this happens to a certain degree, and that's when the friction comes in.
When do you think that? Well, I guess this would be subjective to every person's like relationship, but like at what point in the relationship, you know, if that's happening, do they do something? You know, like take action, do something to remedy that.
I think the tools to preserve love is like the meditation, the practicing the tools from like Eckhart Tolle or Stoicism or holding space, different things like that are the things that will actually doing the music enhanced heart meditation.
Yeah.
Just what I've learned in my relationship as well is just taking the time to go back into my mind with music that connects with my heart, and I take those moments and I go back into the sacred moments that we've had in our relationship, and just that restores the connection. It's almost like a timeless sacred place that you go to where you can re-experience this love again and you connect with your heart.
Can you describe what the music enhanced heart meditation is for people who've never experienced it?
It's like it uses the power of music. Music is the thing that transcends all language. Like you can listen to a song that has the intention of love, even if you don't understand the language, and you will feel something from it a lot of times. So music is something that transcends languages, barriers. And then what we use is a guided meditation with that music to guide you into the heart, guide you back to sacred, loving experiences, to reopen and reconnect you to that heart, take you out of the logical mind into the heart.
That's actually what I experienced literally last night. Like when I experienced the music enhanced heart meditation, that is exactly what happened. Like I'm running around doing all these, work, etc., life, whatever, but being able to just be present and to be in that experience really brought me back to my center. And that I think is just a non-negotiable, or at least just an enjoyable experience in general.
You think about it, it's like we are more stressed today than we've ever been. We work longer hours. It's higher profit, higher productivity. Companies require more of their people. There's so much competition in the world. This all puts you in a very analytical state of mind. It's very logical state of mind. And so where is there room for the heart now? It's so it's not a coincidence that in relationships are going the way that they're going because everyone is running around in these AI state of mind, you could call it.
Yeah.
And so it's, we don't even realize that we're already, it's like Elon Musk says, we're already AI. It's like you're already connected to your phone, connected to your computer, viewing data, where it's already happening. And so there has to be restoration of what makes people, what makes humans human.
It's like the balance.
Yeah, there has to be something that brings you back. The thing that separates humans from AI is the heart. It's love.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think that they even played like an AI like thing. I forgot what it was, but there was like this clip of an AI, and like someone asked it the question of, like how can you tell like an AI from a human? And I think it was that. I'm not sure if that's the correct reference, but
I think I've heard something like that too.
yeah, it's like love is the one thing that's missing.
Yeah,
Like-
because you can, it's like GPT chat. It's like
Mhm.
it can mimic a human so well. It can, if you're typing to it, you probably couldn't tell. But there is something about love that at this point, technology can't mimic it, and it's it's something sacred. It's something that makes us human, and you can feel it through the sacred connection that we have, as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think that the world needs to have like a childlike mind.
Mm-hmm.
Childlike mind and childlike heart, because like as a child, like not only are we talking about relationships between two people, like a couple, right? Like it's relationships in general between parents, siblings, friends. And so when did we start, like, do you guys remember at what point you stopped having that love in your heart? Because when kids play with each other, they might get into a fight one day, but like the next day they completely forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
They don't become like adults and start going down like a list of things of everything that someone said and like how it offended them. They're just like, cool, let's play again tomorrow. And tomorrow they just forget everything. So like if people could just have more of a childlike mind, childlike heart, and just forgive, forget, move on, and keep your heart open, I think that the world would be a much better place.
That's so true.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. It's like, oh yeah, that's so true. It's like that meditation that we did where it was, it's kind of like you remember the person as a child.
Oh,
Think of them
yeah,
as a child.
Yeah, that one's,
Yeah.
That's very powerful, actually. Yeah.
Because kids, they love each other.
We need
They
to.
just have so much love, and they're always playing with one another.
Yeah, we need to do something like that.
Yeah, I think that's part of the tools right there.
Another tool.
Yeah, another tool, yeah. I think that it's because they have unconditional love.
Yeah.
Like that's what, I think that there was a quote, it's, our true essence is love. And so when we are born, like it's of love, and then as we grow through the the ages in life, and then when we pass on, like we return back to love, right? So, what happens? Like, what are all those experiences that we are experiencing that kind of diminishes or closes up the heart? Like, there may be trauma, the ego, pain body, whatever. But at the end of the day, if all of us or every individual on the planet, could return back to that unconditional childlike love, the pure love, that essence, then I think that for sure, the world would be a much better place. But
there's a lot of people who think that like love isn't needed in the world. Like I'm surprised,
really?
Actually. Yeah, like I'm there's some people who think that like it's just fairy tale stuff. Like there's no actual function for it. But this is just my personal belief. I believe that there is actual function to love, because if there is no love in the world, think about it, as we would be purely logical beings, and we would think like AI. And so if you wanted to, let's say, preserve the environment of Earth, then you may just make a calculation of, preserve the environment by just removing all humans. Because you're just thinking pure logic. But a being who loves wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So there's literally a function for love in the world. It preserves life. For life to exist, love must exist.
I believe that actually. Wow. That's very deep too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You wanna. Wow.
Well, just Just wrap it up.
Yeah, we gotta wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting kicked out of the studio, so gotta wrap it up. Just kidding.
Our producer over here, she's crazy. You know?
So we're I think that, you know, there's gonna be way more of these videos, and I hope that, you know, obviously those who are listening like find value in them. But I think from this conversation alone, like there's a few call to actions. Like there's a few tools that like everyone can actually get a hold of already.
Yeah.
And I think there's 3. And we need to create that list.
Tools to preserve love.
Yeah, I think that's super dope. But so music enhanced heart meditation
Yeah.
is one for sure that I highly recommend everyone try out at least one time. And you don't even, I think that like for those who've never even done meditation, like it doesn't matter. Like just it's just like
It's literally just listening to music and let your imagination go.
yeah, that's a really great way.
It's just guiding you back to a sacred place of love.
That's dope. So that's one, music enhanced heart meditation. You can find that on the lovetower.com.
Yeah.
There's like a meditation library, and those who've never experienced it, just go there, press play. And then another one is the tools. So I think we should roll that out like as soon as possible. When can we get that up?
Anytime.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow, let's do it tomorrow.
Or maybe that's another podcast.
That's okay, yeah.
Another discussion.
Yeah, let's
it's
have
another discussion with probably more of the team on ideas. We can do like a mastermind on a podcast to discuss like any tools and kind of, you know.
Let's do that.
Mm.
Next one. On the next video, on the next discussion, let's talk about that actually.
Let's do it.
And then I'll take some notes too, cause let's roll that out ASAP. I think that's gonna help. That's gonna help me. So, and then I guess what's the last thing? What's like another maybe tool or piece of information or advice?
I think it's just that's our purpose in doing the podcast is to to spread love in the world. Obviously, that's what we're all doing together, the Love Tower Project.
Yeah.
And it's really to preserve love, whether that's in a relationship or just love for the world in general.
Yeah, or even for self-love.
For oneself,
Yeah, self-love.
yeah.
Actually, yeah.
I think that's actually like number one too.
Yeah.
Is to at least like in terms of like self-care, self-love. That's what I learned from Crystal actually.
Yeah.
Self-love.
Yeah, because if you love yourself, what is that saying? Hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, through self-love, a lot of less people will be hurt.
Exactly. And healed people naturally will heal people.
Yeah.
Yeah, just by being. That's it.
That's true.
Okay, nice.
I love it.
Let's get it.
You guys are good.